I'm Alan Steinfeld. Welcome to New Realities. I have a great cast of people here today. We're going to start off, though, with some questions to Grant Cameron, who is actually, I'm going to promote this book that I just came out with. It's coming out. It's called, let me just go back here, Making Contact. Grant has an essay in there called The Theory of Wow. And do you want to just explain why you called your essay A Theory of Wow?
I call it the theory of wow because the more I look at the phenomena, the more it looks like whatever we're dealing with just wants you to go wow. It's like if you saw the interview with Bob Bigelow and George Knapp, if you've seen that interview, he asked Bob Bigelow, sum up Skinwalker Ranch. You had this ranch for a number of years, sum it all up. And he said, it's all about messaging. And that's exactly what I'm saying. It's like you start to wonder what's really going on, except that they are putting out messages. The second night I had a UFO sighting in 1975, I remember watching the thing fly away, and I said to myself, so what's it doing? It wasn't doing anything. So now when I ask people about UFO sightings, the first question I ask them is I say, so what was it doing? And they usually say the same thing. It wasn't doing anything. It was just there. And this is the whole idea. Why do UFOs have lights on them? Why do they take the blood out of the cow? Why do they leave crop circles? Why do they drop apports? Why do they drop pieces of metal that make us go like, what is going on here with weird isotopes? It's the question is, are they actually coming across the universe to mutilate cows, to mess around with, have little pieces fall off the flying saucer, to put lights on crafts? Or is this all to wake us up, to get us to realize something is going on? It's not quite the world you really think it is. And so the more I look at it, the more it sort of appears to me like it's not what I thought it was in 1975. And I think a lot of people went down that road.
So I wrote this book, which is a compilation of what everyone thinks it is, like UFOs on some level. So let's get into why this might not be UFO and it might not be aliens. I think you have a really good understanding of the next level. You know, like Terence McKenna said, they might be disguising themselves as aliens as to not to alarm us, because whatever else is happening is much bigger. So what's your whole thesis about they may not be aliens, Grant?
Well, it started, I knew already. I remember I was talking to Linda Howe about this switch from 1959 to 1961 in that period. In 1890 and the crash in Texas, they were Martians. They actually said, we're from Mars. These wooden ships with the propellers, and they were talking to people and they said, we're from Mars. And then, so that went all the way into the 50s. They said, like, the Canadians were told, AFA was the Canadian alien, was from Uranus. And I remember the metallurgist guy said, at no point did we ever believe this thing was from Uranus. We're not stupid. And so as soon as we got past that, where we realized there may not be life on Mars and Venus, then suddenly it was from Zeta Reticuli and the Pleiades and Andromeda. And then in the last couple of years, suddenly we're into the multidimensional universe, the whole idea about, it may be just a sort of a computer game and stuff. And now it's like we're from the fifth dimension, we're from the 12th dimension and this sort of stuff. So when I ask people, when I start, and I do a lot with experiencers who have been on board the ship, and a lot of people say, did it hurt? Did they probe you? Were you scared? All this kind of stuff. I always say, hey, let me ask you a question. Do you have any clothes on? And they go, no, didn't have any clothes on. That didn't seem strange to you? Did it have any sex organs? They're raping the women. Did it have any sex organs? No, I didn't have any sex organs. Did it get any older? No, but aliens live a long time. And they would all this. Did it have a mouth? Well, no, not really. It had a slit. Didn't have a mouth. Did it have a nose? No, it had these tools. Did it have ears? No, it didn't have any ears. And then you start, and I actually ask people, did you actually ask if it was an alien? Sherry Wilde is the most famous one, where she goes to the publisher to publish the book, The Forgotten Promise, and the publisher says, hey, Sherry, something's wrong here. This gray that you're dealing with, he says he's from Andromeda. He can't be. He's got to be from Zeta Reticuli, because Zetas are from Zeta Reticuli. So she says, really? So she goes back to Da, who's the being, says, so what's going on? You said you're from Andromeda, and you're from, where are you from? Are you an alien? And he said, no, that would not really describe who I actually am. I am an etheric being on a search, no, on a, what do you call it? On a mission for the creator through the universe. And then if you take a look at, if you've ever seen this story, Yossi Ronan, an experiencer, he lives in Israel now. His experience where the beings come in and they're green. They're like alien, they're like grays, but they're green. And they tell them, no, we don't have, we're not really, we just take on whatever body we want. And same as Sherry Wild, she said, why do you come as this ugly, scary looking gray thing? He said, well, because it's easy. It's functional body. To make a human body is a lot harder than a gray body. So we use the gray body. And she said, well, you're scaring the living daylights out of me. You should come at something different. And he said, you scared? I mean, do you ever look in the mirror? You see that you got those big teeth every time you look at us. And you get these kind of conversations when people ask Whitley Strieber. If you look at Whitley Strieber, he said, I've asked them repeatedly over the years. They have never, ever told me where they're from, except to say they're from here. Or Mark Sims, who was on with Zenka. Right. Mark Sims has this being that comes to him, and he says, "I'm from 4,000 years ago from South America," and yet he has no ears, no nose, no mouth. You can see through him. He has no eyeballs. He looks like a gray, except he's like blue with sparkles and stuff like that. And again, the question is, where are you from? I'm from here. And you start getting these things where the beings are sort of goofing around. They're not really answering the question. You wouldn't understand where we're from, and this sort of thing. So that's the whole thing. And the more I look at it, the more it looks really weird. And it's the idea of take a closer look. What are we really dealing with? If something's weird about the alien, like you can see through it, or something like that, it looks like a hologram, then you got to say, like, what are we really looking at? Is it really a flesh and blood alien? Because if it's a flesh and blood alien, it'll get older, it'll have sex organs, it'll have belly button, it'll have nipples. None of these aliens seem to describe that kind of stuff.
But Grant, we're just getting used to the idea that it's aliens, with the government coming out, and now you're one step ahead of that saying, well, it may not. So what is it? There is something going on for sure. It's not just,
Well, I would say, I think Valet would say what it is it's the ability of etheric beings. It's like Shakespeare. All the world's a stage. All the men and women and aliens are but actors. They have their entrances and exits, and each man plays many roles. We are not the actor on the stage. We are playing an actor on a stage. So they can come into the physical world. They can become physical. They are absolutely physical when they're here. And then, as Yossi Ronan said, what happened when it was all over, these green beings all grabbed hands and they started making the circle, and they went round and around, and all of a sudden they became translucent, and then they became into this ball of light, and it got smaller, 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 and it disappeared. So is it a flesh and blood alien, or is it a ball of light? And I would say it's an etheric being that could come into the physical world and become physical and go back into that world. I even sent you overnight, I sent you this AI guy, expert on AI intelligence, who has the DMT experience yesterday, and he says, I had it and I lived thousands of lives, every single moment of thousands of lives in 5 minutes. He said the one I had before that, I was in a full-blown abduction experience, classic abduction experience in 5 minutes on DMT. So then you start wondering, like, what's going on here? And 25% of all people with the DMT, Strassman discovered, had the abduction experience. And they see aliens. So what are they really doing? Are there actually these aliens out there? Or as Deepak Chopra says, everything is an action inside consciousness. It's all consciousness, and they can manipulate consciousness to be whatever they want.
But I did get a mark on my leg when I think I was abducted. There are hybrid children that people have seen. There's a physicality to it, and I'll let other people jump in too. But yeah, what about that, Grant?
Well, I mean, people will describe it. I had a conversation with the beings. There was these beings from Great Britain that wanted me to interview them. And they made a prediction that actually came true. I mean, it was like kind of weird. And that woman would wake up with wounds or bruises on her body. And this is the thing. You can go into the etheric world, and you can create stuff. Like we know through hypnosis, you can make somebody have something appear on their body, like pretend they're getting burned by a cigarette, and that will happen. That's the thing. It's this power of the mind to create these kind of things. And the thing is like the DMT experience with the is the guy actually on the table being abducted? Or is in another world? Is there actually a physical world? That would it become down to.
That's a whole other conversation.
This idea, and that's what Niels Bohr said, who won the Nobel Prize for Physics. If you look what he said, I speak as a man of science who spent my entire life at this. There is no physical world. That's what he said. the guy who won the Nobel Prize for atoms. And it's this sort of thing that it is in our world. We see it as a physical world, but in terms of the reality, it's much more. It's 1,000 times more complex. We're making it too simple and saying there's aliens out there. We're aliens, or we're humans. They're aliens, and we're sort of. I think it's way more complicated than that.
Well, Zinka, does this fit in with some of what you've been finding? And then I'll get to Steve and Andrew. But what do you think, Zinka?
Yeah, I think we have to really question, like Grant is saying, the nature of consciousness and the nature of our reality. The old sages from old times said, we're living in a dream, we're living in a Maja. So when you look at movies like Avatar, which talk about two different worlds, you know what I mean? We can't be sure that this isn't the dream part, and when we sleep is the waking part, right? So there's things, and I think Grant is trying to explain that there's a lot that we haven't unpacked, and we are about to go from unity consciousness, which everybody's all talking about in the internet, right? Which is that we are one, right? We're all part of the same. We're indistinguishable with each other. We're all connected to each other because we're all being created and in one breath, right? In one instance. But then when you start to look at galactic consciousness, right, which is the next layer, then you start bringing in all of these other narratives, right, which we're creating in real time, all of us, right? And which may exist in historically. But you have to be careful not to get lost in the story, in the details, because
whatever story
like we're talking about last night, it's like we can recreate the soap opera between the countries and the this and the that into the galactic narrative. So this race is mad at this race. All of that doesn't matter. It's all about understanding unconditional love. And what I've been interested in is getting out of my meat sack, right? So what does it mean when you leave? What does it mean to get in this other world, this other dimension, or this other thing that's right here that many of you guys have experienced? How does that work? Like, what condition does your body have to be in? What condition do your chakras have to? What condition does your mind have to? And that's really, like, I feel like it's almost a key. So whether this is the big question though right now, which is there something outside of our consciousness that's interacting with us? Is there someone on, like, where is base reality and who's interacting with us, right? And we can call them aliens. It could be spirits. It could be ascended masters. It could be alien. I don't know. You know what I mean? We could be aliens.
Well, we're going to find out. I just want to introduce Roderick Martin. He runs the Clubhouse club called Extraterrestrial Evidence. He is a MuFON researcher. And I don't know if you're ready for this, Roderick, but they may not be aliens. So we'll get to that.
Okay. All right. Did I miss something? Oh, my God.
No, I think you did. We all missed something, according to Grant. But David, were you going to say something? Or Steve? Steve, go ahead. Steve, and then David.
I'll just to say, I'm not an OTO guy. I'm more of a Thelemite.
Okay,
I have
whatever
to go.
you are.
But that brings me to something I just read. I just was reading an account of a meeting in, like, I think it was 73 with Robert Anton Wilson, Jacques Vallée, and Grady McMurtry, who was the head of the OTO. And they were talking about ultra
celestial
intelligences, whatever. And Vallée pops in and says, Jacques Vallée said at this point, the outstanding quality of UFO contactees was incoherence. So I just want to say now that I think that one of the things that people has anybody looked into surrealism as a prompter of the UFO phenomena in the 20th century?
Well, I think art is, and but let's not go there yet.
No, I'm not talking about art. I'm talking about the surrealist manifesto of the dissemblance of senses. The complete deassembling of senses, I think Artaud said, which is incoherence, which is destroying the rational thought, destroy all rational thought. And this is an emergent property of consciousness. Like, where was our last consciousness and where are we heading now? I think we're learning to be incoherent. And I will talk. Good.
No, let me just get to David. David had a question. Hi, Henrietta. Thanks for joining us. David, you had a comment? or from about what Grant was saying?
Yeah, I think that, I mean, it's, I'm excited for where Grant's going with this. I mean, he obviously with the, the downloads of music and creativity and the way that you're now branching into like a wider concept of the phenomena as a phenomena that interacts with us and kind of opens that freedom up. I was going to ask if you looked into, you were talking about the kind of time periods in the development. Have you looked into the Mead Lane stuff? Mead Lane and Borderland research with the Etherians.
Do you know that, Grant?
Well, that was the original idea. Like we sort of rewrite history. Like that's what
Right.
happened with the whole deal about Eisenhower meeting at Edwards Air Force Base, where they said, "Oh, he was dealing with Greys." Well, no, that Mead Lane letter said he was dealing with Etherians, and then we rework it and we turn them into Greys. Greys didn't appear until 1961, as far as I know, and reptilians didn't appear until 1988. And I always saw this sort of a period where they seem to be flipping, almost like they're turning the pages of a book, and it doesn't make any sense. Because I've been around so long in the field that I know that it wasn't always this way. I mean, there was no reptilian talk back in the 70s. There was no light language. There was a lot of stuff that's changed. I just want to throw one more thing in here, because people may not know. Jim Semivan, who was the co-director of To the Stars, has just made this, or Ryan Bledsoe just made this thing, because somebody brought up the ultra-terrestrial thing, and that's what he said. He had the beings in his room in the 1990s, really weird-looking beings in his room, and he went to the CIA. He was head of covert ops for the CIA, and he's the one that's now come public and said, I'm trying to get it confirmed, where he said, we are dealing with ultra-terrestrials, which means from here, the sort of the Keel idea, and that they are dealing with, they are sending us messages through symbols, and so here's a guy who's a very high level CIA guy who actually spells it out and said we are dealing with ultra terrestrials. And I know that the Pandolfi, Dan Smith crowd always use that word. You hear it around, so that's something. But yeah, people seem to rewrite history. That's what I find, is that
all the time, right? Let me just ask Andrew. You had a question or comment there about unmute, Andrew.
Unmuted. Can you hear me now?
Yeah. Okay. Yes.
Can I share my screen? Is that possible?
What are you sharing? Sure.
I just want to share my implant.
You want to share your implant to show Grant that it's real. Let me just make you a co-host. Let me just say, allow screen. I think this should do it. Okay.
Oh, she's getting there.
Okay. Can you share you now?
Yeah. How do I do it?
You just go down to share screen, the green button on the bottom.
Share screen.
You see that? And so okay, that's your implant. So
sorry, you're going in and out, Alan.
You're breaking up, Alan.
Yeah.
What this? Oh, what are you trying to show us what are you showing us here?
I'm showing you something that happened to me about 10 years ago. And
what are you trying to tell us about that by showing us that? What does that mean?
It means that either I was implanted by aliens or by the government. Nobody is really sure. I'm just going with people's intuition. Maybe somebody has something to say about it.
Is this a scar or is this the implant?
That is the scar after brain surgery.
Okay.
Okay, yeah. Grant, can you stop sharing the screen?
Yep.
Okay, thanks.
Well, I was just listening to Whitley's interview today, and he talked about he's absolutely convinced the government put the implant in him. Some guy that was an expert on EVPs and stuff like that. So I don't know if the government has that kind of technology, but Whitley seemed pretty convinced it was not aliens that put the implant in him.
So, but let's ask the bigger question. Okay, Grant, things are changing, things are evolving. We really don't know who we are as human beings, right?
Exactly.
I mean, and so maybe this threshold we're at now with the government coming forward, they're always one step behind us to say, okay, there's something new. There's a new paradigm. So yeah, it's not reptilians. It's not aliens. It's it's about who we are somehow. We have to wake up to this next level. And this is what we're talking about. Henrietta, just jump in and tell people, we've talked about this, because when you had your realization that like you were contacted with ET, something else opened up in your mind, right?
Yeah, I mean, hi Grant, and sorry for being late. But and I'd love to hear what just a quick.
Yeah.
Hi Andrew. Hi everyone. I'd love to hear just a quick thing of what I've missed. But as I was coming over here, I was thinking about this inner outer space thing. About where are they? What is it? Who are we? What's the relationship? Like what is that? But so much more this kind of inner space thing that seems to be is a possibility for me.
Right. And the inner space, but what about the implant thing? I mean, that Andrew, a lot of people have, Grant. I mean, there's a physicality that's not just, you can imagine a wound on your body, but it's hard to imagine like a metal object inside your body somehow. Yeah,
and also the UFO, the actual experience of seeing that, which is so real, in terms of sort of seeing a real object. There's that too. Yeah. Like it's just, But
Alan, is anybody familiar with this Tesla phoresis stuff that's going on? The Tesla coils.
Well, let him answer this, Steve. Steve, let Grant get that question. We'll jump into that. Go ahead, Grant.
Well, there is a physical component, but I mean, again, it even comes down to, are we actually human beings? Or are we on a stage pretending we're human beings, that we're etheric beings and we come in? Is there actually a physical world? That's what quantum physics goes. There is no time, there is no space, there is no physical world, and it may all be consciousness. And yes, there is a physical event in terms of our thing, but I would look at it more like interdimensional. When you talk about this inner outer thing, Wheeler from Princeton said there's no out there. If that's true, then the out-of-body experience is within yourself. When you die, you go within yourself. There is no out there. It's all in your head. It's all, everything that you see is inside you. It's all consciousness. And that's where the more you look at it, the weirder it gets in terms of we're just misinterpreting things. We're in the old physical world where there's physical worlds and there's worlds out there, and there's time and there's space and stuff like that. And the more we look in science, the more it's moving away from that to this idea that it may all be one thing only, and it's just one point of space. There's only one electron. There's no out there. It's just all here, and it's all dimensional. So that there is these beings, there is this stuff. But is it out there, or is it within ourselves?
Right. Steve said the contain or the container. But David, they were saying this in 1957. Maybe talk about that book you came across, because they were saying this for a while. What was the book?
Yeah, it was actually Flying Saucer Pilgrimage by.
Do you know that book?
Are you familiar with that one, Grant?
No, I'm not. That's interesting.
Yeah, it's a couple that, and that's why I asked you about Mead Lane. They'd actually there's a great chapter in there where they go and visit Mead Lane, but it's Bryant and Helen Reeve. And what was really interesting to me was that I'd actually just got a copy of this book again. It's from '57. It was republished by Ray Palmer, right? So the Kenneth Arnold Flying Saucer. Shaver mystery stuff. So Ray Palmer republished this book in '65, and I got a copy of it because I'm really interested right now in exactly the kind of stuff you're talking about, with going back right to the very beginning of the whole deal and seeing like what exactly was being said, because so much of it has been rewritten in the cultural history, and a lot of stuff is said about it, but nobody actually reads the articles that came out in the 50s or whatever. So I'm reading in this book, and I flip it open, and ironically, this is just earlier this week, which is why I had posted it and tagged Alan with it.
Yeah.
It was about consciousness, and it actually
in 57.
In 57, it had this whole the whole chapter is exactly what you're saying, and I was like, wow, I knew about the Mead Lane stuff, and I knew that was kind of dancing around in that. But I mean, they were directly like, no, everything is consciousness, what we're experiencing, and these were messages that they were receiving, because this Helen and Bryant had actually gone on a cross-country journey meeting with Van Tassel and Adamski and Daniel Fry and a lot of these folks, but then also just talking to experiencers that they ran across. And so, you know, in the midst of this, they sort of did what Zinka is doing, which is kind of another interesting sort of synchronicity in finding this, encountering this book recently again, was codifying what everybody's saying and then trying to get an idea like, okay, if we have all these parts, you know, what do the parts kind of paint? And so it was interesting that they said some, you know, so directly that consciousness was kind of the key. You know, they said the background concept of this entire explanation of outer space is in the proposition that life is primarily a manifestation of consciousness, or if one prefers it, life is consciousness. Now there's life as a whole and there's individual life. Life as a whole is the sum total of all consciousness. The summation of consciousness takes in all life, all existence, and all reality. On the other hand, individual consciousness takes in only the particular portion of total life, existence, and reality, which the individual is aware of at any given period of his evolution. So
1957, that's advanced.
Really interesting.
Alan, wait a second. Dave, I gotta say something. I gotta go. Dave, when you said that, it reminds me that the East and the West, this idea of the Eastern philosophy, Watts and all these people, that's what that's about. It's the Eastern and Western philosophy. And then we get into this group mind thing. I gotta say something. I'm gonna do this. What was so important about the triangular UFO the other day, the pyramid shape? What was so important about it?
You were going to tell us that? Yeah. What was important?
The first thing that came to my mind wasn't that it was a pyramid. What was it besides being a pyramid?
Well, what was it? Tell us.
It was a tetrahedron.
Okay.
Right? Really important. Everybody knows what a tetrahedron means, right?
Well, tell us what it means.
The triangle becoming the fourth emergent point that has freedom and space around it.
It's also a Merkaba.
Out of one comes two, out of two comes three, out of three comes all numbers, right?
Right.
And now I'm going to go, so that's the fourth point of, it's a degree of freedom. It's an emergent property. So when I saw that thing for the first second, I said, this shit's a tetrahedron. It's not a pyramid, right? Now, I'm going to just do one more thing. I'll be done.
Okay.
Everybody's familiar with the memristor, right? The memristor?
No. What is that? No.
Yeah, people don't get memristors. A memristor is the new electrical component. Been a theory about a memristor for the last 50 years. Are you familiar with memristors, Dave? And a memristor has potential. So the memristor is the fourth again. And now I'll leave it at that. But if you're not hip to memristors,
you're not explaining what it is, though, Steve. What is a memristor?
A memristor is a resistor with variable memory. It's a new first new electrical component in 100 years. All right.
All right. And what does that have to do with what we're talking about?
It's a new. I'm going to use the word emergent again. It's a new property being brought to reality. You know, and when I hear you guys talking like this, I kind of go, "Wow, we're in the past still." You know, I mean, where is the next? This esoteric stuff has become exoteric. That's what it's about. And
I think what Grant is bringing up
is exoteric. Get esoteric, people.
Okay, but I think what Grant is bringing up is that there's an evolution to the phenomena and to our connection with the phenomena. So I wonder, Roderick, does this blow out the MuFON, technical study? What is your, how do you feel about it? There may not be anything to investigate for MuFON anymore.
Well, I mean, with that being said, I just kind of, as I'm listening, I'm still trying to wrap my head around it, period.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah, you know what I mean? So I think we're all going to go with either facts or beliefs, Wait,
Zinka put memristor as a nonlinear two-terminal electrical component relating electrical charge and magnetic flux linkage. That might be the next paradigm somehow for...
Yes, I just told you that, Alan.
I know, but I'm asking Grant, we went from like if we trace the phenomena, like you said, Grant, 61, Betty and Barney Hill suddenly see grays. No one had seen grays before that. And maybe the science fiction cults were getting popular. So now's the time, like whatever this phenomenon is could show up as grays. And like we're saying, we just recently got triangular ships in the 90s. So what do you think, if we could take a guess, where is this going, Grant, in your opinion? What is the next manifestation of, as Jung said, this unconscious mind that it's trying to wake us up to the fact that we're really not here in a way. We're really not physical. What do you think, Grant?
Well, I don't know about that. I can make a comment on the triangles. I had a triangle sighting in 1976, and I never thought about it again until about 6 months ago when I started writing a book on triangles, because I realized all these people had triangles. And you take a look at the triangle thing, it is the primary piece of the universe. Everything is made out of triangles. Even circles are made out of triangles. And the triangle, if you look at Chris Bledsoe's aliens, they had a triangle. The little alien had a triangle on his chest. The Mission Rama, the being inside the Zendra, had a triangle on him. People have triangles. I say, why do they put triangles? You're mentioning implants and stuff. So why do they put triangles on people's bodies? Like, what is this?
They want us to be tetrahedrons.
No, but what is that?
This is all symbols. This is all symbol stuff that they're doing.
But the symbols are real. Like, you used to see triangles when I talked to you, Henrietta, and that just, right? Didn't that kind of like show up?
Yeah, when I was talking to Alan about many other things, I'd see
before
these
she got into this.
Yeah, I'd see triangles above his head, which was very strange. But anyway, it makes sense though, and it does make a lot more sense to me. You know.
Right. So Zinka, what's your research on that?
Yeah, that's interesting.
I would say that Grant always says we're in the Super Bowl. Well, what does that mean? It means that we're about to totally shift reality into the galactic narrative. Why? Because we have asked for it, because we want to experience it. And you guys have been in this for 30 years, but it's a wave that grew and grew and grew and grew. And now there's enough of a tipping point, just like we study in the Maharishi effect, right? When there's enough people that want to experience a reality, it will become a reality, right? If we want to go to Mars, someone will invent the thing that gets us to Mars, you know what I mean? Or what, right? Whatever it is, right? So we're experiencing a click that's going to open the floodgates to all of this experience. And one of the things we need to be careful about is that the narrative isn't spun on the news media as negative, because they affect our subconscious a lot. It's like one brushstroke on the media, right? It's like millions of households, boom. And that can change the way that we experience this new narrative, right? So we need to be mindful as a group, because it's going to enter the physical now. It already has, and it's going to be, the floodgates are going to be happening now.
So can we jump start like what the next just manifest. But I think, Grant and a lot of us have been around in this field a long time. Could we guess how it's going to manifest? I mean,
we're in control. See, that's the thing. That's the enlightenment.
No one's in control.
We're in control. You can let go and let it happen.
No one's in control.
Well, maybe you're not in control, Stephen.
We're in control of how
we want to make it into, Zinka. Then, if we're in control, where are we going with it?
This is Star Trek. This is like all civilizations coming together to drop incredible technology, like this thing you were saying, to do super cool things. We want to travel. We want to live longer. We want to go to other places. Like, this is the mother lode drop of technology and abilities. We want to develop telepathy. We want to do all this stuff. And with them, it's an easy way, right? Because they're going to show us, right? They're more advanced, right? So this is the perfect, it's like the hero's journey. Everything is effed, and then all of a sudden something happens. This is that something, and it changes everything.
Right. Well,
can I make a comment on that?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Because I think I think that's kind of an American idea, that we want technology, we want this, we want that. It's like we want some more stuff. And I think what the beings are doing is, whoever this intelligence is going the other way and saying it's going to be more like Eastern religion, where the stuff is what's killing you. That we need to realize that realize who you actually are. You are not the stuff. And so that's what I think the government is trying to do, is they're trying to do this thing where we're going to get control of this. That's why they went to Skinwalker Ranch. That's why DIA went there, because they were putting bulls in trailers. They're locking these inside a trailer. They were doing all the support stuff. They were making stuff appear, portals appear. And the intelligence said, we'd love to have this stuff. I mean, this is more technology, more stuff. And I think the more I look at it, the more the beings are saying, the intelligence is saying, this is not as physical as you think it is. And so that's my conclusion, is with the end result is going to be, it's going to be less physical than we think it is. It's going to be way more spiritual than people think it is, which is really going to annoy a lot of people. And it's going to be 1,000 times more complex than people think it is. And it is going to be a hive mentality. As much as people want capitalism and all this kind of stuff, it is going to be that we are a cell in the human body. We are part of the one. That is, to me, is the ultimate message that they're trying to get across to us. And I see the other thing that I think you see them doing is they're doing this confrontational thing where they're appearing as different things. So one day they're a triangle, next day they're a ball inside a cube, and then they're like a tic tac. And that's why I say, like, when you see the description of the tic tac thing, they said to Fravor, so what was it doing? Oh, we were up at 30,000 feet, and this thing, it was bouncing around like a ping pong ball. Well, I saw that in 1975. It was the most amazing thing. This thing's going around the sky. It's bouncing around. So what is that? Like, is that a pre-abduction maneuver? That's to get you to go, oh my God, what's going on here? This thing's jumped. And so they were watching this thing. And then I say that they sent the one to go and make bubbles under the water. And so the F-18s go across and say, oh my God, there was one under the water and there's big bubbles and stuff. And they're just trying to get our attention. They're trying to get us. And once you do the circus, it's like the Jesus thing. Once you do all the miracles and all the circus stuff, then they bring you the message. And they're trying to get our attention because we're in this situation where we're scrambling around and we all believe we're separate. It's you versus me, like football teams. And that's why I think the number one message to me is always going to be this oneness idea, that unless the world understands that we are cells in the human body and that we have to work as one, we are toast. It is game over. I think that's the main message that they want to give us. So that's where I think it's going.
That's right. Steve, did you, but let me just ask, because go ahead, jump in, Steve, because I have a question.
I hang out with a lot of electronic composers and they all need the synths and this and that. And I say to them, if you can't do it with a can and a string, you can't do it at all. All right. So that's about technology. You know what I mean? So people thinking that they need stuff to get something done. Grant, you know, when you talk that, I had some chocolate before, so I'm a little keyed up. But when you talk that way about the one body and one mind thing, it makes me think of Olaf Stapleton, and again this Star Maker, and you know this. I think about, and I think that paradigm is past. I think we're in that paradigm has been recognized.
Well, you can't argue with the oneness, Steve. You're arguing with your. You're arguing with yourself then.
Okay. Damn straight I'll argue. It's about, I'll easily argue.
Okay, you can have that point of view, but one day you might say that you're not who you think you are. But Grant, I have to say there is an out there. We are physical or appearing physical. We've been programmed to think it's real, but let's just, it's not this or that. I don't think we could say, oh, it's all non-physical, it's all physical, but there is something, an intelligence of other beings, because then you're sort of saying all these beings are really of one mind, the Greys, the reptilians, they're all manifestations of,
they are.
Maybe, but we're sort of individuated. Why wouldn't other species be individuated in the illusionary sense I'm talking?
Well, because we assume that we are like the only thing. We are physical. We are just a vibration. We are not. That's where we're making the mistake. We think we are actually I played King Henry VIII in a high school play. Now I'm King Henry VIII. You are not King Henry VIII. You are playing King Henry VIII. And we have this thing, and that's where you get this thing where you look at the DMT thing, which I think is extremely important. That's going to open this thing up. Is there actually a realm where there are these elf beings, and people will describe them in there? 50% of people will describe them, and they will describe the abduction. So yeah, there are these different realms, and there are these different beings. We are all in this sort of vibration thing, and to me, it's all vibration. There's the idea that we're real and they're not. That's where you get the alien thing. That's where we get into this racism thing. Like the really bad guys are the black reptilians. Like, guess what? And then the Greys are the next bad guys. And then the Caucasian guys are the good guys. And the highest ones are, of course, the Great White Brotherhood, the Ascended Masters and stuff. And you get into this thing of trying to understand that we're the good guys, and we're putting them in different races. The Greys are all like this. We're all different on the universe. In our world, we all look different. We are all souls, wherever they are. Everybody's on a stage. we're all reincarnating, and we may be in an agreement with them so that you may be a gray next time. You may have made a deal with a gray. It's all the same thing. It's all souls, sparks of the divine that are reincarnating, that are cycling through. And this idea that there's us and there's them is this separation idea that really starts to get, I think, starts to get us into trouble. And the more I look at it, the more I realize it's this, what Deepak Chopra says, it's all an action inside consciousness, that when you break it all down, the physical world seems to disappear.
Right, but that's the highest level. None of us are separate either. I mean, we don't even have to go to aliens. Look, we're all, of one consciousness. But the illusion that we're playing in is separateness or distinction, and I think that's the world that we're working through. I mean, there's you there when you shut off your camera, you're all by yourself, maybe in your room, and you may have the memory of this, but it's not one or the other. This is what I'm trying to say.
Alan, I'm going to jump in. I had chocolate. So it's the Hegelian thing, right? It's Hegel.
What's that?
Hegel turns around and says it's synthesis, antithesis, this thesis, antithesis, and synthesis. And oh, look at that. We have three, and we're all becoming one, and we have a synthesis.
No, I'm not saying that.
Philosophy. It's not reality.
I'm not saying that. I'm just saying.
I'm going to read that little UFO thing from 1904. For I am divided for love's sake, for the chance of union. This is the creation of the world, that the pain of division is as nothing, and the joy of dissolution all. That's 1904.
All right, that's one take on it. So I'm saying, Grant, and it's, yes, we're all one and we're all separate. So there's a manifestation of phenomena here, which is something, and that's sort of the illusion we're playing in now. So we can say it's all one, and that's great, and I believe that, but it's also, we're here in the apparent separateness, and let's deal with what the next manifestation coming around the corner is going to be, around the block, the next materialization of phenomena, right? I mean, can we go there? Anybody? Zinka?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of interesting because because of the global news and things like that, we've started to realize we're on one planet. It's a spaceship. Right. And we realize now that something that someone does in one country completely affects everyone else. So we now know that we're all tied together, right? So we rise together and we fall together. And that's the message at hand.
Exactly. Bravo.
Beautiful utopian sentiments. And
what, Steve, that's your opinion. One day you're going to wake up and you're going to realize you're a part of everything. Okay, Steve?
I don't think so. I think
it's like the way the body works. If you mess up one part of your body, then everything else compensates. It's like systems thinking, right? We've started to systems think and realize that what one person does affects the other piece. And if we really want to do cool stuff together, we have to realize that.
Play on the same football team. You can't win by everybody doing their own thing where you're in the huddle. Just everybody go do what you want. I don't want to block. I want to do this. Everybody has to work together. That is the ultimate message. And the idea of separateness is just simply ego. And when you do psychedelics and it kicks the living what out of your ego, you suddenly realize, as they all do, it's like, oh my God, everything's alive, everything's conscious, and everything's one. Everybody says the same thing. And they will go back and say, the physical world is the illusion. It was more real than the real world. And that's where I think psychedelics, the people that are having these experiences, and it's a revolution, it's moving around the world, is going to change things, because the people that come back will say, 74% with psychedelics, 74% of people who were atheists going in were no longer atheists coming out. It's absolutely revolutionary, because you realize it's more real than the real world. It is not a dream. It is not an illusion.
Hey, Grant, have you done the toad? Have you done the toad?
No, I haven't done the toad.
Okay. So you did ayahuasca?
No, I didn't do ayahuasca.
Okay, you haven't done the toad. Let's just say that ayahuasca was the old paradigm and the toad is the new. And if you know really psychedelic people, which I do, I worked with Mondo 2000. I was probably the only person who Terence McKenna called and said, I've been told I need to meet you. All right. So, and that's true. So I would say, Grant, if you want, I'll spend a minute and talk about the toad. If not, I can shut up.
No, right, well, that is the ultimate thing. So, but you have these different realities. So, psilocybin is one level, DMT is one level, and then the toad is this pure consciousness where there's no form and stuff like that. The 5-methoxy. These are different levels, but there's no separation. They're just different levels of consciousness.
Right.
We'll need to talk about John Lilly too, right?
Well, John Lilly was sort of, I worked with John Lilly. I think he lost his mind, but he did merge with the dolphin consciousness. But no, Grant, let's just, and other people can jump into David, Roderick, Henrietta. There is this apparent separateness. We are separate. So whatever's manifesting as the alien is showing up and maybe in the illusion of their own separateness. Maybe they're not all in this oneness of consciousness. Is that possible, Grant, that they are also working through the illusion?
No, I think that if you take a look, 40% of all experiencers say at one point during their experience, they knew the answer to everything in the universe. I don't think they can get here unless they understand consciousness, the oneness. That's how they get here. They realize it's all one thing. We think you need a big giant spacecraft with 1,000 years worth of food and big engines and fly across the universe at the speed of light. They realize you can just pop in. That's what Kit Green says. When Peniston said, what the hell are you guys doing? What are you doing with Bigelow? They had 8 people, these scientists, and all this is funding for experiencers. He said, we're trying to figure out how does the phenomena pop in and pop out just as quickly. So they know this, that they're just coming in and out. And I don't think you can do it unless you understand that it's all one thing. There is no time and space. They're just changing the equation and they're moving from one spot in the wherever to another spot, whether it's across space or whether it's in these dimensions, which I think it is.
But they are moving from, they are like you're now acknowledging that there is something coming from somewhere to here.
As okay. When you do DMT, they will describe it. It is like you have a rocket on your back and you are out of your body and you are going somewhere. And everybody describes the same thing. Yeah, you're going somewhere, the same as they're coming. But are you actually moving across? Or as Deepak Chopra says, is it all an action inside consciousness? There's only consciousness and everything is a verb. Everything is happening inside consciousness. And we're making this illusion of separating us from other people and
when Alan was interviewing Deepak Chopra, I asked Stanley Krippner, I said, Stanley, should I go see Deepak Chopra? And he said, I want your opinion on Stanley Chopra. So go Deepak Chopra. So go and see Deepak for me. And I came out and Stanley said, what did you get from Deepak Chopra? I said, he's pushing an Indian agenda, a Hindu agenda. And and that's what I got.
I like Deepak. I think he's quite a clear being, but what were you saying, Grant?
It may be right. That's the whole idea that the Eastern people were talking about this 5,000 years ago. And because they couldn't build a cell phone, we said they're totally idiots. And now we're starting to realize it may all be Maya. It may all be an illusion. The quantum physics is backing up Eastern religion. They were right all along. And the same as I said with the UFO people, the UFO people will be right all along. We're just getting vindicated now. The stuff that we're saying, science is now starting to back up.
Wait, Grant, can you also talk about what happened on Mount Shasta with that group of people? Because that's a fascinating story. What happened? Yeah.
Okay, I'll tell you a little bit about the 2020 event. So they have one in 2014, 2015.
Who are they?
Okay, this is Mission Rama, which is another idea where you got to really start looking at the beings, because Mission Rama is like 25,000 people. It was started by Sixto Paz and his brother Charles Paz in 1974. They had this automatic writing. They claimed they were contacting these aliens, and the aliens said, come to the desert 8 o'clock on Saturday night. We'll be there. The ship shows up. They get to go on the ship, and they developed this protocol of doing this mantra and the meditating and all this kind of stuff. And they can tell you when the objects are going to appear. Like when I was there in 2017 at 9:33, 2 people said it would appear at 9:33. This thing appeared over my head at 9:33. And I'm telling you, I was born again. I said, man, these people are onto something. And they open these zendras, which they call interdimensional portals. So the beings lower their vibration. They use this mantra and meditation thing to raise vibration, and then this zendra will open. They call portal or zendra. They call them zendras. Will open. The Mission Rama people, there's 25,000 of them. They have all sorts of contacts. I have never seen a gray, never seen a reptilian, never seen a mantid. It's all these human-looking beings with long hair, gorgeous, all this kind of stuff. every single one. And they've been doing this since 1974, and they've had a lot of contacts. So 2014, they opened as Zendra. 2015, Paula Harris is there. Her interpreter
in Mount Shasta. In Mount
at
Shasta.
Mount Shasta. Her translator goes into the Zendra with her, and they're seeing beings that are holograms. And I said to him, "Did you see the holograms?" I didn't see no hologram. It was as physical as could be. I could see the lines in the guy's face. I was standing right there. And that's the thing, is you start to see this thing where two people are seeing two entirely different things. They're both looking at the same thing. And then you start wondering, well, if it's something really physical and really real, why aren't they seeing the same thing? So he suddenly, they call it hitchhiker phenomena. It follows him home. And this Antarel, this being, starts appearing. And his car starts all this weird stuff where the windshield wipers are going. And the car's turned off and weird stuff. And then he gets a message from Antarel, says, well, we've changed it. And there's Adama as the new being. And you need to go to Mount Shasta in 2020. You need 111 people. Sends them to Shasta. To Sedona. And they have this thing that the alien makes them go to Sedona. They do this stuff and it all works out. They go back. And in 2020, and this is what I interviewed the people. They have an encounter with a being in the crystal shop at the bottom of the hill. Then they're sitting there, they're having a party, birthday party, 2:00 in the morning. They're sitting on the sand flats. You know what the sand flats are. And earlier that day, they're taking a film. They said, "Can we film?" They filmed this being in the forest, and it's moving. And it looks like a white figure in a gown on this video camera. And they pick it up twice as it zooms one way and zooms the other way.
This is in Sedona, you're saying, in Sedona?
No, they would send up to Sedona to do all this weird stuff. Go do this, go do that. And if you do that, we'll show up at Mount Shasta on August the 19th or August the 20th. So they're having this party. It's a birthday party. It's 2:00 in the morning. There's 9 people sitting on the sand flats, not in chairs, sitting on the sand flats. And suddenly the one is intuitive. She's from Mexico. She says, "They're here." Exactly what Chris Bledsoe says. They're here. And I always said to Chris Bledsoe, "How do you know?" I can feel the vibration. Once you become one with the craft, once you've interacted with them, you feel the vibration. So even if you can't see them, they're there. So the one woman says, "They're here." And then how do you know? I just know they're here. And suddenly this light starts lighting up in the forest, and it's pitch dark. You can't see your hand in front of your face. The light starts to appear in the forest, and then she says, "They're over there." And then someone says, "Oh no, that's just a campsite. There's somebody's campsite." She said, "No, that's them." And then in an intuitive message, this being says, Adama says, "Come to the forest. Come, we're in the forest. Come to the forest." She said, "We're not going across. It's so dark. We're going to get injured trying to go across the field." And they said, and we've got 3 witnesses. I'll put this on YouTube. 3 witnesses of the 9. They say, suddenly it was like a herd of elephants coming across the field. They could hear this. And they said, "Okay, we'll come." And they said, suddenly Adama was there. And it has this long hair, very beautiful, looks very human-like. And they're sitting there and they get scared. So the 9 people hold hands. And we got 3 of the witnesses telling the story. They hold hands and the beings are there and they are levitated into the air. They're up in the air, and then they described the fact that they started oming. They were scared. They didn't know what to do, so they started oming. And they said it sounded like they were underwater. Well, I've got a 747 airline pilot who was in a Zendra who said, when you're in a Zendra and you talk, it sounds like you're underwater. So they were in this Zendra, this interdimensional bubble. And I said to the one guy, I said, "So how many beings were there?" He said, "A couple hundred." I said, "A couple hundred?" He said, "There was as many beings as there was forest in the tree, and they were energy beings. Adama was sort of human, and all these energy beings all around them, and the beings were oming these witnesses." This is 9 witnesses, and that's the kind of stuff that you get when you start to see this. But the thing is it a physical being? Because they said they were etheric beings, and they will disappear into these etheric beings, or they'll be holograms and stuff like that. And the more you look at it, the more, yes, there's something going on. There's some sort of dimensional thing going on. But in terms of physical beings, it starts to evaporate. These weren't physical beings that they were dealing with. And there was 9 witnesses, not 1, 9 witnesses. And we've interviewed 3 of them.
And did they get a download? Did they get a message of any sort?
They got a message. Yeah, exactly. So it's a circus and then the message. Now I've got the message. I put it on Facebook. But they give a message, and it's the same classic message that all the contactees give. You got to get together, and love is the basis of the universe, and be one, and all the same story all the time. And that was the message they got.
Wait, Steve, let me ask, any comment, Roderick, David, Henrietta, on that? Roderick, what do you think of that phenomena?
You know, I will look into this camera and tell you, everyone, all of this is just kind of, for me being an investigator looking for the facts of things, right?
There are no more facts anymore.
There's no more. It's out the window. So now I'm just sitting here going, where do we go from here? And how do you interpret all of these things? And so I'm listening to Grant. Of course, Steve is making his points elusively. I mean, just putting them out, and so I don't have a dog in the fight, but I'm in the fight. So I'm here listening. So. Okay.
Actually, Grant, maybe we get you. Yeah,
let me add one more thing. You know that the CIA wanted to come there. That Ron Pandolfi, the guy who supposedly briefs the president of the United States, has always said all this stuff about anti-gravity, all this stuff is techno scam. It's all a scam. And he keeps indicating the portal is the story. John Alexander said after a Gaia interview, they were asking about UFOs, and he said, look, it's not about the UFOs, it's about the portals. He yells at Sid Goldberg in the parking lot. And so the CIA wanted to send someone to Mount Shasta. And Paula Harris told me, you do not bring CIA to Mount Shasta. You keep them away. And so when this event happened in 2020, I went back to one of Ron Pandolfi's associates. I said, hey, don't you think it's about time to do an interview to say what's really going on here? Are there really portals? Does the government have a portal? Is this interdimensional thing where they're popping in and out of stuff? And he said, yeah, sure, I'll do the interview, no problem. And he said, but I need you to go and make an agreement that you'll get the witnesses and go on a TV show with the witnesses. And then one of the people in the thing said, no, if it's CIA people involved, we're not going to get involved. So I had to back off to the guy and say, I can't deliver the witnesses, but they were going to do an interview. And I said, it's about time that you come clean on this portal thing and do an interview. And they were going to actually do an interview.
Wait, so you're saying, Grant, that the whole UFO investigation, the whole thing ATIP was talking about, to the stars, it's really about this open dimensionally doorways. That's what you're saying.
Well, some of them do. If you'd say the last interview that Lou Elizondo did with the brief, he does and they say, is this on world or off world? And he said, hang on, let's just be hypothetical. Let's go down the rabbit hole. It's not binary. It's maybe not this or that. You got to look. Maybe it's something else. And that's exactly what I'm saying. It's not off-world, on-world. It's something in between. And so some people realize this. It is way more complex than people think. It is not simply aliens coming here in spaceships and tin cans and stuff like that. It's very, very complex. And Lou Elizondo says, we don't know. And that was, I think, what the briefing was that was given to Trump was, yeah, we got these objects. We've got them, but we have no clue how these things are operating. We have no clue. They're right. That's what Jim Semivan said. He was asked, who's running the show? Indicating the government. He said, they're running the show. And this is the whole idea, is that this phenomena is way beyond anything we've got. And the idea that we're going to go and shoot these things down, like Stephen Greer says that, to me, that's QAnon nonsense. They aren't shooting anything down. This phenomena is running the show as it did at Skinwalker Ranch. We say, oh, this is our airspace. Get out of our airspace. We own the airspace. Remember what happened at Skinwalker Ranch? That's what Bigelow said. Bigelow said, when I saw what they did to the government guys, I knew it was time to sell the ranch. And what do they do to the government guys? These guys with the guns, these special forces guys are walking in Skinwalker Ranch, and they get stopped on the spot. And they get the voice that says, leave, you are not welcome, which indicate if anybody, nobody owns the airspace, nobody owns the land, but if anybody owns the land, they were here first, they own the airspace. And these special forces guys, and Bigelow talks about this, Knapp talks about this, they don't get into details. These guys went home and they were absolutely petrified. And there was wine bottles flying across the room, smashing against walls. It followed them home. And that's when Bigelow sold the ranch, when he saw what had happened. And that's the whole thing is, George Knapp says, in this participatory universe thing, that you are part of what you're seeing. He said the people that were the most aggressive to the phenomena at Skinwalker Ranch had the worst experiences. So this phenomena will react to whatever we have it. And so they're making these engagements with the military, and we are part of the phenomena. It's just not us versus them separation. The more you look at it, the more you realize that we are part of what we're seeing.
That is great. Thank you. Go ahead, Steve.
Did you use the word poltergeist at all, Joe, in that spiel? Because I felt like the word poltergeist should pop in. Two things. I'm going to go really quick. The other thing is talking about portals. Other day, very distinct vision. I had a UFO, and it came, landed. It was a sun wheel. It was landed right on my forehead. Opened a lot of shit up. It was a fucking sun wheel SWAT sticker. The thing that scared me about it was I said, "Holy shit, this is what Charlie Manson had going on." Now, the other point I want to bring, and I want to bring Dave in, is Dave. Grant mentioned the circus aspect to it. And before he said circus, he was giving me the spiel about this Shasta event. I thought the Society of the Spectacle. So is that Baudrillard? Go into that. You might know about that. The French philosophy about the spectacle, right?
Yeah, the Society of the Spectacle is Debord.
What does that mean? Go into
Debord.
details about that, David. What does that mean, spectacle, you're saying?
It's the Situationists, right, Steve?
Well, so talk about the history of that, can you?
Was that 60s? That was the 60s with the French. Yeah, it was
a French, but go ahead, Dave.
Well, what is it?
Well, it was a advanced socialism, I guess. I don't know, in a certain way. It was kind of a reaction against capitalism, a reaction against capital, a reaction against contemporary.
It gets very philosophy.
Yeah, but what's the esoteric part of it, David?
Deconstructionist.
But what does that have to do with portals?
Because it's the assembling of the senses through a spectacle creates an altered state that opens a portal. A spectacle and a circus and all these things, spiritualism, Grant, all these things are to dissemble the senses, give you an unusual experience that blows your mind, psychedelia, and possibly a portal opens. I mean, this is
I think Grant would agree with that, because that's how he wrote a book on contact modalities, and that's one of them, right, Grant, to disassemble?
Yeah, with the contact modalities, I talk about the trauma thing, that a lot of times trauma is used. So whenever you near-death experience, this thing opens up, or, Leslie Kane talking about the hand that appears and disappears and stuff. And when you hear Leslie Kane talking about it, then you realize there's phenomena that can come in, become physical, and go back into the other world, that it's only physical for a certain period of time.
Ectoplasm.
Well, there's not that. The psychic phenomena also had its own evolution as well. You don't hear about ectoplasm like you did. You don't hear about tapping tables and all that knocking like you did. There's a sort of evolution to the paranormal, like you're saying, the evolution to the ET phenomena. So are they really the same? Okay.
Well, if you take a look, I remember I asked Yvonne Smith, like the thing about the paranormal stuff. I said to Yvonne Smith, so how many, you regress all these people, how many of them have psychic phenomena happening? She started laughing, like 99%. And it's like true. It's like it starts to happen. Same with you have near-death experience. These people, same thing. 50% of all people who are in say have an abduction experience say they can heal people or they've been healed. In near-death experience, it's 70%. It's you see these parallels of these phenomena that it's all the same thing. And that's the whole idea when Ray Hernandez saw me do the consciousness lecture and went back to Miami, and 2 days later he gets pulled out of his car and has this out-of-body experience where they show him the wheel and say it's all the same thing. Quit parsing it. Psychic phenomena, remote viewing, UFOs, quantum physics, it's all the same thing. Consciousness links it all. And that's when the whole free thing with Edgar Mitchell started, that survey thing. And that's how it happened. It's basically all the same thing. It's all a play off of consciousness. And we want to change it into little things like the channelers are better than the contactees, or the contactees say, don't put me with the channelers. They're full of it. And we're playing this separation game, and it's all the same thing. And people have different levels of ability at what they're doing, but it's all getting into the veil, going into the other dimension or whatever it is, pulling material out. Whereas people would say 40% of all people say they knew the answer to everything in the universe, and the aliens took them there. So if that's true, then whoever the intelligence is has all the answers to the universe. It's all there. It's the ability to access the material.
Right. So someone writes in the chat on the YouTube. We got a lot of great comments on YouTube. So keep those comments coming. Somebody said, what about that comment by Ben Rich that we now have the technology to take ET home? That wasn't consciousness, was it, that he was talking about? He was talking about technology.
Well, I know Ben, Hal Puthoff went to great details to talk to Jan Hartson about what he had said. But what did he say next? He said, and you got to prelude that to 2 years before. We're talking to Dr. Eric Walker, former president of Penn State University, who knew what was going on. Like Puthoff went to him all day, Kit Green went to him to find out. We realized this guy knew what was going on. He was there from the beginning. And we were talking to him about the control group. What about the control group? Is there still 12 guys? Is it all Americans? Look, he asked you a question. He says, what do you know about ESP? And the guy who was interviewing me said, I don't really know. He said, look, unless you understand about ESP and how it works, you will not be taken into the control system. Very few people understand. So when Jan Hartson says to Ben Rich, he says, how does it work? How does the propulsion system work? How do they get here? He turns around and says to him, he says, let me ask you a question. Exactly the same question Walker asked. What do you know about ESP? And Jan Hartson says, it means everything in time and space is connected. And he said, that's how it works. Gets in his car and drives away.
So, okay, just one follow-up. So the 180 days that is coming up in June, where the government's scrambling and Elizondo making excuses that maybe we don't know, we won't get all the intelligence together. Is this really, in your opinion, because they have no idea what's going on? They don't know how to talk about this. They don't know how to wake up these Christian fundamentalists into the fact that it's really spiritual. It's not about, the whole religious sort of thing that they've been into. Is that the big problem the government's having now, Grant?
Well, my impression, it keeps changing on this thing. So what you got to realize, people always think that the government is a unified agency, and it's not. There's agencies like these fundamentalist Christians that are fighting. There's people fighting for budget, where they're going to grab your budget to say you're crazy, grab your budget. So I think there's different levels. And I think what they're trying to do is they're trying to open it up. So all the stuff like the Rendlesham Forest stuff all went into a black hole. All the gun camera footage went into a black hole. Somebody knows what's going on, but I think there's these different levels. So Whitley, Elizondo and these guys, they're at sort of a level where they realize there's something to this. The phenomena is real, and they realize there's somebody above them that has some of these answers. But I would say the people at the very top, the answer they have is we haven't got a clue. For example, if you look at the Wilson document, at the end of the Wilson document, it says, we've got a craft that we think that will fly. So what does that mean? It means they have a craft, an intact craft that they cannot turn on because it has a consciousness interface. You can't turn it on. So it doesn't matter if you've got all the metal. It's like a cell phone. You can't turn it on because you don't understand how it works. So I believe there are people who understand at the very highest levels that there is something very, very mysterious about this. It's very, very consciousness driven. And it's almost like I'm going to try to confirm. I'm pretty sure Ron Pandolfi said, because we cannot control the phenomena, we watch the people who the phenomena is affecting. So you have people like Whitley Strieber is talking about being tracked, about an implant. Chris Bledsoe, they're talking now about a satellite above his place. He was told numerous times by intelligence people that he was being tracked, that his phone is being tapped. And that's what they're doing. They're trying to figure out, because it's the experiencers who are interacting with the phenomena. The intelligence agencies, you think they got all this material. They don't. They're just listening to the experiencers. They're picking up that's where they get their intelligence from. That's why experiencers are being watched so closely. And the experiencers will tell you it is this weird sort of paranormal consciousness thing. And the government's trying to track into them and follow them as to what are the beings telling you? How does it work? How do they get here? And all this kind of stuff.
Well, they do have a lot of material, because if you saw Elizondo the other night on CNN, some reporter says, well, are these 3 or 4 videos all we got? And he had to control himself from laughing. He's like, well, of course not. Did you see that the other night? It was amazing.
But there again, that's where the idea of the theory of wow comes from. So they have all these videos, and that they can turn off. Jacobs tried to video them with the mysterious cameras. Whitley Strieber tried it, and they tried to Skinwalker Ranch. When the phenomena doesn't want to be filmed, it's not filmed. So when they show up, when they have lights on it, they want you to see it. The same as when they have the piece of metal on. I said to Hal Putoff, I said, Hal, you've got to know this is apportations. This is not pieces of flying saucers. Like every piece is different. And so you look at it and you say, wow, look at the isotopes. These isotopes are all messed up. This can't be on Earth. But it doesn't tell you anything. It's just a weird piece. It's like a UFO thing. It's the theory of wow. It's to get everybody to go, look at this metal. This is just so weird. But you're not going to build a flying saucer from a piece of metal. And there are no pieces of metal flying off the flying saucer.
You think these are ports?
Yeah, I think they're dropping it. If you listen to
dropping?
Yeah, if you look at Bigelow, Bigelow's talked about, they asked him about Roswell, and he says, and remember, Bigelow had all the money. He had all the top guys working for him for a number of years. He said, yeah, but don't forget, he says, they've got one in Russia, they got one in China, they got one in South America. I think they're seeding the planet. And if you look at the guy that was the NASA guy, the top NASA guy that gave the briefing to Obama about Chris Bledsoe, he when they go to the field, he takes Diana Pasulka and Gary Nolan, he takes them to this field where the metal is, and they're finding these pieces of metal. One has a triangle on the piece of metal.
Yeah, right.
And they call it the gifting field, which indicates they're crashing on purpose. They're dropping this stuff. They ain't making mistakes. They're dropping this stuff, and they're just trying to get you to go, wow, this is for real, and move you past this idea that we're alone in the universe, we are in control of everything, and realize the world is much more weird and more magnificent than you're ever going to believe. And we're coming to that realization.
It sounds like cargo cult stuff.
No, Steve, don't have to go there. But I do want to think what you're saying, Grant, reminds me of Henrietta's essay in the book, where it's kind of non-linear. And what you come to, Henrietta, is that in a sense, we are the mystery. We're looking for the mystery out there in the UFO, but it's right here. Who are we? We are part of that greater intelligence. That's what I'm getting from this conversation. Henrietta, you have anything to say about that?
No, I mean, I'm just fascinated by everything that you're saying, Grant. I couldn't agree more. And Zenka, well, because, and thinking about it, but it's clarified, if you can call it that, this portal concept of just, instead of the separation game of sort of this realm, that realm, in my experience of any contact or dreaming or with DMT experiences, everything just kind of slips between, it's just a big, you're just slipping between one thing to the next. It's differentiated, but it's not like there's this and there's that. It is a unified field. Yeah,
Grant, I think you sort of hinted at it. We are the mystery. It's not, that's what the wow factor is. We're not. Go ahead, Grant. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that's the idea. That's where I keep saying we are not the actor on the stage. We are playing an actor on the stage. Or Whitley Strieber's wife, Anne, says, Whitley, I am no longer Anne, but I'll always be Anne to you. She leaves the stage and is now playing a different role. So we have to realize, you got to remember, who are we actually? We sort of put ourselves, we are human beings. And these are aliens. No, we are all actors. Yeah. We agreed to play a human being. We are not a human being. We are an etheric being who came into a reincarnation world to play a human being. We are not the human being. We are behind the human being. We have to remember who we actually are. We are not the actor on the stage.
Well, Grant, and you keep the magic word. Literally, the magic word is masks.
Masks. I don't know what
masks.
Okay, we're wearing a persona. That's mask. I think that's what he means. But the idea I'm also getting from what you're saying that I just slipped my. But if we're the mystery, then we have to kind of re-educate ourselves, retrain society, kind of be the mystery that we really are, and not think it's out there. The government doesn't have the secrets. There is something magical about all of us, and by saying yes, it's all oneness, it's kind of, I'm not saying it really does it, but it reduces it to a kind of blandness, I think. And if we say it's all one, I'm not saying you're doing that, but if we say it is the mystery, we're part of it, and it's a complexity that's unfathomable, but we have the capacity to start to open our brains to this unfathomable reality, then the world can become magic, because it really is.
That's why I say it's the Super Bowl. When you realize what's really going on, you realize you are in this Super Bowl of all stories. Most people live lives of quiet desperation. They haven't got a clue what's going on. You and I, but then the Bible says too much is given, much is expected. Edgar Cayce says knowledge not used is sin. When we realize, then it's up, the onus is on us to talk. And that's why I say we've got to talk to the experiencers, because they're the ones that are dealing with the intelligence. The government probably doesn't know, except for very high level people that you are not going to get to. The average government person doesn't care either. They're busy with their field or whatever they're doing. We are the ones that are getting the answers, and the people, you get people and that are experiencers, and you start talking to them. That's why they're talking to Chris Bledsoe. They go to Chris Bledsoe and say, how are you making this contact? They take the little piece of metal. Have you heard that story of the little piece of metal?
No.
With the whole family. They put a piece of metal in his hand, Then they put a second piece of metal, like Ryan talked about it, put a second piece of metal in his hand, and he feels this electricity going through his body. And they say, you've had a face-to-face contact with the intelligence. Then they put it to the brothers, the sisters, they all get the thing. Chris Bledsoe puts them in his hand. He basically goes into a seizure. Then they give it to the girlfriend, and nothing happens to the girlfriend. So NASA at least knows that. Tyler D, who did this experience, knows at least that. And so they go to Chris Bledsoe and they're saying, how do you do this? How do you make contact? What are they telling you? That's why they're watching the experiences, and we should be watching the experiences as well, because that's where you're going to learn. These are the people that are interacting with whatever this intelligence is, and the intelligence is telling people. And when you talk to an experiencer and they know that you believe them, they will tell you, unlike the government, an experiencer will tell you exactly what happened to them, exactly what they think is going on, what the beings told them. That's where we got to go. We've got to spend all our time talking to the experiencers, because they've broken through. They're in the Super Bowl with us. And once you realize this story, you realize this is the biggest story of all times, because it's the story of the reality of the world. How does the world actually work? It's really got nothing to do with aliens or UFOs. It's got to do with reality. When you see an inconsistency, when you see an anomaly in the universe, you realize we've got something wrong. And I was told that directly by an intelligence. I was told that you got the wrong blocks. They said, not only have you got it wrong, it's exactly the opposite of what you think it is. You just think you know, you haven't got a clue of how it works. And that they talked about the wrong blocks. We think we've got all the right blocks, and we're just looking for one more block to put in there. And what they're saying is all the blocks are wrong. 1492, flat earth, center of the universe, wrong block. And we're taking these wrong blocks and we're putting them in. When you have an anomaly, when something doesn't make sense, that means something is wrong. You got to talk to the person, figure out what it is, and you will start to learn, how does reality actually work? How did the universe come into being, and who are we in that reality?
So that's what we're learning. We're learning how reality really works with this phenomena. What's that, Steve?
I have to say my favorite quote from Ouspensky: we need to learn to think in different categories.
Right. John Mack said that. We need other ways of knowing. But Grant, the government does have a portal, according to what I think you said about Pandolfi and his wife traveled through these dimensions, or they had some video about talking about their portal. What does the government know about portals?
Well, that's what I'm trying to find out. That's my main focus. I'm trying to get them to open up about this. I'm trying to get to find out, is that real? Because I've watched all Pandolfi's writings, because he keeps hinting at it in indirect ways. And that's the whole thing. If they realize that, but that would be very few people inside the government. That would be like 1 millionth to 1%. There's very few people, I believe, that really know how this thing all comes together. But it is the key thing, the idea of anti-gravity and stuff. If you take a look at Joe Firmage, he spent millions of dollars trying with these gyros, trying to levitate this thing off the table. He never got it 1 inch off the table. And that's why I say, if people think we got anti-gravity crafts, give your head a shake, because he had millions of dollars. He could have bought this technology. He was trying, and every time you go, like Hal Puthoff says, I've got a graveyard of people saying that they have these inventions that are free energy devices and stuff like that. They've tested all this stuff, and that's why he keeps saying it's techno scams. So that's where I'm going. I believe that may be what it's about, and that comes to this idea. It's not out there over here. It's levels of reality. It's different vibrations. Everything is vibrating, and so. DMT people vibrate at one level, we vibrate at this level. The aliens are vibrating, and you see a lot of experiences. If you look at the free survey, you see a lot of dead people in crafts with the aliens. So that would indicate that dead people are at a vibration, and if we learn how to do it, we can get into that vibration and talk to the dead people. We can get into the being vibration. It's all different vibrations. It's all the same thing. It's all one thing. It's all time and space is connected.
Oh, Zinka or Henrietta? Oh, go ahead. Roderick, I think you wanted to say something, because
Yeah, it might be a little my question may be a little primitive here.
That's okay.
But we're talking about portals. We was on Clubhouse the other night, and one of our whole conversation was about Stargate, SG-1. And of course, the Air Force working with them, playing a cameo, dictating what they should put out, disseminate the information within those series. So how does that play a part in all of this about actual portals that they are saying that they have in this particular movie, but supposedly be real portals, right?
Mm.
And that always gave me the thought, if we got the portals, why make the crafts, to fly? I mean, why do we need spaceships when we can just, and go wherever they want to go? So
because I can answer that quickly, because the government is all about money. It's about budget. You don't know what the other guy's doing, but you're still going to push your budget because you want money. It's the idea, like, we got to do the threat thing. If there's no threat, there's no $735 billion defense budget. Everybody's fighting for money. They really don't care whether it's right or wrong. It's, you got to push your thing. So we're not going to, that's what Bigelow talked about. When Bigelow put one of his things up into space, he used a Russian rocket. I remember they interviewed him and said, why would you use a Russian rocket? Why wouldn't you use, because everybody was taking all the hydrogen missiles bombs out, and so they had all these extra rockets, and he said, I used a Russian rocket because the Americans took the rockets and drove bulldozers over them. And the guy said, why would they do that? Because you do not go up against new rockets. You're not going to put them out of business, so you have to destroy all the old rockets. It's all about money. Number one rule in America is money. Number two rule is money. Number three rule is money. It's all about budgets and fighting. So that's what it's all about.
But what about the other part that Roderick mentioned? It was okay. Is that what the CIA okayed the Stargate series? Is that what you said,
no,
Roderick?
The Air Force did. The Air Force okayed the series. In fact, there was 2 or 3 episodes where actual generals from the Air Force had cameo appearances in the sitcom,
Stargate series.
Yeah.
But you also said, Grant, if the government doesn't want you to make that movie about aliens, they will prevent you from doing that. So maybe they're leaking some stuff, right?
Well, I've always said, since 1990, I've said that they are gradually doing it. So if you take a look at, people may not remember Chase Brandon. Chase Brandon wrote a book about how the CIA dealt with Roswell, and it went through the review in the CIA 8 times. He said it was the most reviewed book he'd ever seen. He was a guy in Hollywood. So the way they do it is they're not going to kill you, and they're not going to block you. So if they hear you're doing a movie, they say, Alan, you're doing a movie about UFOs. Yeah. Have you ever been to the CIA? Do you think we could help you out? And they what they want to do is move you in the direction they want to move you. So if you take a look, the prime example was Bob Emenegger, 1974. He's doing this documentary where they say, it's the Vietnam War. We want you to do these documentaries on 3D holography and working with dolphins and all this kind of stuff. And then he's going, yeah, okay, fine. And we want to make the military look good after the Vietnam War. And he said, oh, and we would like to do this UFO movie. And he went, documentary. And went, what? There's UFOs? And they said, what would you say if we told you there was a landing at Holloman Air Force Base in May of 1971, and we'll give you the film and you can put it in your documentary and stuff like that? And they basically give them the film. They allow them to put 8 seconds of the thing. And at the very last minute, they pull it and say, oh, we can't give you the actual film. We can just give you 8 seconds of the film to put in the documentary. And that's the thing. So they're directing it. They are gradually leaking this material out to filmmakers, but they do it with everything. They're always manipulating Hollywood because they want the CIA to look good. They want the government to look good. So they try to direct you in the direction they want. They're not going to try to kill you. They are gradually leaking the story. I've always maintained they're gradually leaking the story.
Yeah, they were saying that.
Wait, let Roderick finish. Go ahead, Roderick. Go ahead.
So I'm sorry, and then I know Steve's going to throw us a punch.
No, Steve has talked a lot. We got your chance.
So what I was hearing toward what Grant was just talking about, how they're a soft disclosure, is that on some of these programs that the government is doing, particularly with Stargate, is that rather for stuff getting leaked out and then people are going after them saying, what about this? What about this? It's a lot easier for them to say, okay, we're going to give you some of these things to make these movies so that when stuff actually does leak out, we can say, oh, that was just in the movie. You guys don't know what you're talking about, but it really is. So it's kind of like they was helping them, and they were saying that in every episode, they had to sign off on it. They had to say, okay, you got to make us. And they even gave them an award for I think I forget what kind of colonial award it was for making the Air Force look good in a good light, right? But at the end of the day, it was all about, yeah, it's true, but that way, if the public finds out about it, all we can say is, oh no, that was just a movie,
But Roderick, that's why I was going to say the Outer Limits. Are you familiar with the Outer Limits?
Yeah.
The Outer Limits was done by a general's son, and it was funded, so that's something to look into, because the Outer Limits was.
This is what Grant's always said. I guess the last 10 or 20 years, that they give us something, they take it away, they confuse us, right, Grant? That's your whole basis.
Yeah, it's always plausible deniability, so they can always walk away. Like Pandolfi will say a lot of stuff, but he'll never say anything directly to you, except the one time I got him on the video, and he was furious when I got him on video. But it's always plausible deniability. And one prime example is the movie Firefox with the cowboy guy, Clint Eastwood, where he takes the Russian plane, and the plane is talking to it. He's talking to it with his mind. I've got 50 people who've flown the flying saucer, and they'll all say the same thing. You put your hand on a panel, you put your hand on a ball, you become one with the craft. The craft is alive, and whatever you think is what the craft does. That was in Firefox. That was like 20 years ago. And so that was this gradual thing, but it's always fictionalized, so you can do it. Or the latest videos, all the videos, I always maintain, all the videos that came with the New York Times, that was leaked. It was, even though the woman who leaked it, that was not coincidence. When Lou Elizondo retires from the Pentagon, and in disgust, you do not get all the videos as a goodbye present. Those things were thrown over the wall, classified, unclassified. Those things were leaked. They wanted them out there, and they say, no, we didn't leak that stuff. No, that wasn't. They'll say, now it's real, but they say, no, we didn't leak it. And nobody questions. Everybody just said, oh, these are real photos. How did the photos get out of the Pentagon? How did those videos get out? They were leaked. The government actually leaked that stuff.
Right. What was the Pandolfi thing you got him on? I'm just curious. Okay.
Well, he was on a cruise. He was on a cruise ship in the and the guy who was actually going to do the interview was the guy who was filming. So Princess, his wife, is the one that claims that she's come through a portal. That she's the one that has the portal. Okay. And so she says to him, "So what do you say, Footman?" And there's this guy sitting right beside him. His name is John Sillison, who may be the guy who's involved in this portal thing with the actuators. And there's all these stories. So he says he's on camera. And he says, people have always wondered what it's like to go into the next world. The next time John goes to the desert, a number of us here will go into the next world and come back again. And that was on camera. And there's no doubt about that, because the story always was that Dan Smith used to say that they had a portal in the desert, and that he had been offered 3 times to go through the portal, and he always panicked. And so I asked him on one a chat thing like we're having now. I said, Dan, you turned down going through the portal 3 times. Well, no, that's really not true. And his Pandolfi's wife says, yes, Dan, it is true. And that kind of stuff is what really makes me think, yeah, they've got it. Because she said, no, Dan, that is true. You turned it down. And so the idea is, do they have this portal?
So Zinka, what were you saying? Sorry.
Well, I was just going to say, I have no doubt that they have some sort of a portal. I'm sure we're understanding how to manipulate frequency and vibration all the time. But I think what Grant was saying before is very key. Is like he's saying they are looking to the experiencers as well to fill in the story, and because no one knows what's going on. We don't know. Nobody knows, right? And so this is now that we have the tools to come together and analyze data, big data, experimental data, stories, that's our chance to tell our own narrative, right? And also advance. So my knowledge helps you, Alan, your knowledge helps Steve, etc. Right. And so that's why, that's why my mission is to build this nonprofit, the exometaverse.org, and to we're doing a hashtag, my first contact experience, because that's another thing.
Tell us a little bit more. Tell Grant.
Everybody that's on this call, if you help someone else have their first experience, it's all about the first experience. Once you have your first experience, you question reality, and you're on your way to this curiosity that will bring about your own knowledge, your own wisdom, your own truths that you'll end up sharing. So we have 2 missions. One mission is to figure out how the puzzle pieces add up, because the universities, the professors aren't researching this stuff. They want tenure, right? Mm-hmm. And if money is in the narrative with the government, we don't necessarily want that to be filtered into what's going on, right? So we need to come together, do our research together, have a wiki research platform, figure out what's happening with us. And we also need to bring other people into it, because we're the force multiplier.
Well, talk about your organization in a bigger way, so we can understand what you're meaning. What's it called?
So we started in December. It's called.
What's the name of your organization? Sorry, what is it called?
Yeah, exometaverse.org. Metaverse is a collection of virtual worlds. So eventually this will become sort of a map to all of our websites and projects, right? Because we're a network of networks. We're not in a single unit. We're kind of the plumbing for the infrastructure. And we've taken a look at how people make contacts. We've looked at 5,000 people. We've broken that down, and we're going to be releasing a living library, which will allow us to all save not only the best books, movies, resources, and correlate. Well, I trust Alan. What does he have on his list? I really trust, so we can start to pull out, so people aren't having to relearn or find stuff, right? And then also on the other side, the methodology. What's working? What is the best way to do CE5? Is it with a radio? Is it with a prayer? Is it with a radio app? What is it, right? And what works for who? So that's really the main goal, is to really organize our community, have a map so everyone can find each other. You want to know about crop circles? Go to those people, and then really polling and mining some of our wisdom to a coherent piece so we can really watch this happen.
Wonderful. Let me add one thing to that. The famous expression, we are the ones we've been waiting for.
Right. So how far along are you? Like, where are you in the development, and how can people find you and add to your project?
Yeah, so you can go to exometaverse.org, and you can also so there we do collective intelligence every other week.
What does that mean?
So we're doing polling. So this week we're talking about the Mandela effect and simulation theory, because we're interviewing Riz Virk on Friday. So we have these polls that come out every other week, and then we're right now we're getting our nonprofit, and we're actively raising money to build the software. But we've got an initial raise to pay for a programmer for 4 months that's going to be building this living library resource. So right now, what you can do is if you don't, we have a huge network map. So if you see someone that's not in there, tell us about them, right? And it'll get more organized as we go. And then we're also asking people to record their first experience or their best experience, because you sharing how you did it, was it through meditation? Was it in a dream? How was it for you? That enthusiasm and that experience helps someone else say, well, maybe I can have that experience, right? So, and that hashtag is a community hashtag, my first contact, right? And then we can pull those into the central feed, and eventually we're going to transcribe them and actually visualize the data.
Well, Grant, do you think that will help at all? Is that?
Yeah, absolutely. That's what we have to do is we have to realize that the intelligence is in the experiencer. They're the ones that have the answer. That we are making a mistake of assuming that Big Brother has figured this thing out. And my experience, because I had the experience where I tried to publish this book in 1976. Nobody wanted to publish the book. And that's when I said, somebody's got to know what I saw. And I went after the Canadian government. Then I went after Eric Walker with 14 honorary doctorate degrees. Then I went after the President of the United States. Then I went after Ron Pandolfi and other CIA guys. And I'm trying to find out who has this answer. And I came to the conclusion, they really don't. There may be one or two guys, but that's a waste of time. We think the government is going to bail us out. Zenka is right. The intelligence, the answers are there. And if you put them out, at least people who are doing research can cross-index the stuff and take a look at it. The people on the street are the ones, because the government, I guarantee you, the government is watching us. I even heard that Semi Van and put off for reading all my stuff, and I had 80% right. They're watching, because that's where people think the CIA pulls stuff out of the sky or something. They don't. They pull it from actual people like you and I. So they're watching everything. They're probably watching this. They're watching everything we're doing, and they're trying to figure out what the answer is.
Well, is there one? I mean, this cover up, whatever you want to call it, has been going on since Roswell. It seems like there's someone, and maybe it's the aliens themselves, that are working with the deep inside government to stop this stuff from coming out. Is that possible in your research, Grant? That maybe the aliens are behind the government?
They're doing the cover up as well, but they're doing it for different reasons. They're doing the cover up because you can't do your kids' homework for you. The Canadian government claimed that the story that they were told is they appeared after the detonation of the hydrogen bomb. That is one of the key things that we are about to to blow up the place. And they said to the Canadian government, according to Walt Andrews, who you remember, the head of MuFON, got this story from Wilbur Smith, who ran the Canadian government program. And what Wilbur Smith told the aliens had told him was, we need you to stop doing the nuclear weapons. The only time we will ever step in is if there's a nuclear exchange, and we will step in and we will stop it to save the world. And we can take the moon to prove that we can do it. We can take the moon in front of the entire world, split it in half, put it back together in front of the entire world to prove we can do it. Other than that, they said, we will allow the human race to stew in its own juices. So they're not here to save us. It's a reincarnation world. So if we wipe ourselves out, we're coming back. That doesn't, but we're not going to destroy the world. That's the way I see the whole thing. And that's the message. So they are covering up. They are not allowing people to film, but they are also doing the other thing. They are putting lights on the craft. Why do UFOs have lights on the craft? We don't have lights on our planes. They're doing it. They're doing this little, like the dancing bear thing. It's like, something weird appears in your bedroom and it just appears, but they don't give you enough. They don't actually let you take a film. It's always the same thing as the government. It's plausible deniability. And that may be where the government learned this principle. So the aliens are just gradually, like breadcrumbs, leading you down a path, and they want you to figure it out, because the idea of us going and them coming and giving us all the answers is what I call American foreign policy. We're here to bring you freedom, democracy, Jesus, and McDonald's. And next thing, they're already pointing guns and saying, get the hell out of our country. Leave us alone. You cannot enforce your ideas on anybody else. They want you to develop it yourselves. You can't do your kids' homework.
Right. David, you look like you're thinking about something. Any comments on that? Good.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, from, as Grant said, I mean, Grant has done the groundwork with actually talking to folks who are experiencers. And, I think that it is, as some of the stuff I'd shared with you, Alan, and Henrietta, with the quotes from, folks going back to the 50s beyond just the Flying Saucer Pilgrimage book, that's kind of the underlying strong message. Is this pulling us, into something, which also I think is what Steve's pointing out too, is this, it's pulling us beyond ourselves into this further development of what's human, I like the term, and this may piss off Steve, but I like the term, the Homo noeticus term that
Homo noetic,
which Edgar Mitchell and John White had coined, which I thought was kind of an interesting, kind of new vision of humanity. I think Marie Rodwell, who's in your book, right?
Yeah. Yes, she is. Yes.
And she's turned that into New Human,
Right.
And also is one of the folks that have mentioned recently this Homo noeticus concept, the kind of Gnostic human.
Well, I do think this is where the conversation about whatever we're calling aliens has to go, in the realm of consciousness, mysticism, awakening. Like, Henrietta, does this make sense to you? Because you had this contact with your father who had died, and as you opened up your mind, it's sort of, in your essay, kind of all becomes this higher level of awakening, is what I get from what you wrote in there. So talk about that a little bit, and then we'll wrap up.
Yeah, I do. I mean, everything that you've all been saying, and Grant, you've been so helpful. And I've just got to say that I love your project, Zenka. It's fantastic, because just going to the people directly. My experience, as Alan was saying, is just, what actually, one of the things I've been thinking on this call is, like, we're all here talking very kind of literally. I mean, that's what we do, conversationally, etc. But I like, Grant referred several times to us being the actor. Steve's talking about the mask. I'm always, there's something about this beyond language, which is very annoying, because we have language to use, but my experiences are very hard to put into words. But I'm wondering about how we're going to start communicating with each other on different levels, and that's why I like acting and I like poetry, because, that's going through a portal in itself. Like, there's, and in the
my theory is it's about, like Grant said, symbology. It's not about
symbology.
It's not about comprehension. It's about apprehension. When you comprehend something, you collapse the wave function. But when you apprehend it, all these ideas are in superposition. So I got that from what John Mack said, that in order to understand this phenomena, we need other ways of knowing. And the other ways are the shamanic, right? Yes.
Yeah. Well, and also the other ways of communicating.
Yes.
Like, how do we communicate with each other? You know, we're used to, at the moment in time, it's this really strangely kind of literal universe, you know, with our, you know, this sort of like being saturated with kind of news and this way of speaking. I mean, which is why I like reading the old poets like Yeats or something, because then you're already in this different,
Yeats,
you know, you're here, but you're there.
Yeats is very important, I think, and never equated in.
And he says it beyond he's using words to say something beyond the words, which is what the great poets have done.
Exactly.
Well, all right. I think should kind of wrap up. Grant.
Alan, one last thing.
Oh, sure.
Just really quick, I want to just mention Robert Kirk. Robert Kirk was the fairy abductee way back, the Secret Commonwealth. And Robert Kirk's portal was, and this relates to Mormonism, which I'm going to bring in, Robert Kirk's portal, which is what we all carry with us all the time. He said, bend over and look between your own legs. And that's the portal to fairyland. Now, I just want to say, when you talked about Firmage and these people, we also have to factor in the Mormon angle, right? The transhumanistic Mormon. Firmage is a Mormon. I think Bigelow is a Mormon. A bunch of them are Mormons. I'm a Mormon.
What does that have to do with it? What does the Mormon thing have to do with it?
Transhumanism, cosmology that's very extraterrestrial based. I mean, if you know Mormonism, it's all about, it's not about this planet at all. It's about being some other planet. So Firmage and these people are, as Deepak Chopra is pushing Hinduism, Firmage and these other people are pushing the Mormon experiment.
Or maybe the extraterrestrials are manifesting that way. I mean, there's many interpretations. Right. Okay. I just want to say one more thing is that I have this book out. Do you see it on the screen? It's coming out May 4th. May the 4th be with you. I say Grant Cameron's in there. Henrietta Weekes is in there. And Whitley Strieber, Linda Moulton Howe. It's a kind of narrative where we go from the external reality of craft in the sky to the internal esoteric. We go from the exoteric to the esoteric about what's really going on in consciousness. And one more thing, you can look at that on Amazon. And we're doing a book release party. This is my poster for the book release. Travis Walton's going to be there, JJ Hurtak, Mark Sims, Bridget Nielsen, Peter Sterling. This is on May 2nd. So if you can make it to Sedona, that's where Zinka and I are. And maybe some of you come to this free event. I'll sign books. There'll be other people there signing books. Travis Walton is probably the most well-known contactee. He's the most confirmed, I think, 5 days missing with search parties and everything. So this will be a really fun event. I'll try to zoom in as well. Bridget Nelson is there speaking about a starseed. And I think it's really going to be a fun community event. So everybody's welcome. If you could come down, Grant, I know it's a bit of a ways, Sedona, but let's do a Xandra here. Okay, Grant?
Yeah.
And all right. So
Alan, will you do it? You'll do it virtually as well, right?
Yes, it'll be Zoom. So you can look at here on my YouTube channel, but let's just sign off with everyone. David, tell us a little bit about how people can find you and what you're working on.
David Metcalf.wordpress.com would probably be the easiest porthole to all my stuff.
Okay. What are you working on?
Portal.
I'm always working on all sorts of stuff. Right now I'm doing a deep dive into the history of the kind of starseed thing, which I will be presenting on Friday night for it's a Strange Realities, which is a conference run by Adam Sane and Seraphiel Stevenson, and they have these Friday night kind of Zoom meetings, which are
is it online? Could you tell us?
Yeah, it'll be if folks go to I think Strange Realities. If you look up that conference series, or Conspiranormal is the podcast that hosts it.
Okay.
And if you become a Patreon member, they have these little Zoom meetings on once a month on Fridays, where they have presentations and stuff. So this Friday, I'll be presenting on the Starseed narrative and the history of that, which actually kind of goes into some of the stuff we talked about tonight. I want to sort of take it out of the folks laughing at it and look at a more, kind of decent angle on that. And got a bunch of other stuff that I'm working on. Working on a co-authored review of Diana Pasulka's book, American Cosmic, with Greg Bishop, who wrote Project Beta, and he runs Radio Mysterioso, which is a podcast. Grant, I'm sure you know Greg. Yeah. So and Hussein Ali Agama, who's a University of Chicago professor. So it'll actually be an interesting kind of co-authored look at Diana's book, American Cosmic.
Great. Okay. Steve, what are you up to? Thanks, David.
Well, actually, Dave, it's funny. I just read the new Robert Anton Wilson from 2020, the Starseed book.
Yeah, the Starseed. Yeah, Starseed.
It's a great book. That's a great
Yes,
book.
This was old manuscript that was republished by Robert Anton
from
Wilson.
the 70s.
Yeah.
That was, and I'm just working with. I'm actually getting very involved politically in Queens. I work with the Queens County Republican Patriot Party, and we're trying to get people into low-level seats so people can take control of the government for themselves. So electoral districts and assemblyman districts, and that's something I've been doing a lot lately, besides what I usually do, which is walk the dog. I don't know. Who knows?
Okay. And Zinka, what about you? I know you described your project, but what's happening Friday, you said?
Yeah. I love that David's working on the Starseed stuff. That's definitely another topic that would be great to cover. It's fascinating. And congratulations on your new book. So yeah, we're interviewing Riz Verk on Friday. He's the author of The Simulation Hypothesis, and his new book is called The Simulated Multiverse.
Does that have to do with sort of with
what?
Does that have to do with what Grant was saying, that it's all sort of a simulation of? I mean, is that what that means? The simulation universe?
Yeah, he's an MIT scientist and also a gamer entrepreneur. So his books talk about augmented reality, quantum physics, quantum computing, and talking about how we're sort of in this aha moment that it could be possible that we could create something like this if we are in some sort of a beautiful, amazing simulation. So those are some of his ideas, and we'll be asking him questions, and it will be very fascinating.
How can we tune into that? How can we?
I will share. You can share the link here into the YouTube. And
Zenka, I just have to mention, I was an early virtual reality person. I was doing VR in 1990. So just as a aside.
Yeah, that's very cool. I mean, they're saying by 2030, we're going to have a digital copy of the entire world already. And you can already, and Neurables has already created these neural links into your brain. So, yeah, I mean, yeah, it's a very uncomfortable topic, but it's something we need to consider.
Right. But I think we have more in our brains and our consciousness than we've been told, and we don't need those neural links. We just have to discover we're all non-local. When I do a remote viewing class, people get the target without even any practice. It's like, boom, they are non-local. Okay. Yeah. Grant's getting tired. He's rubbing his eyes.
Yeah. The biggest quantum computer in the world is right here in your heart. You know, it's in our body.
Yes,
that goes back to what Grant said.
Yes.
It's not about the things. It's about you've got it, the vehicle right here, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, Henrietta, what about you? What are you up to?
Well, I've been reading a lot about ESP, which was interesting that Grant kept going to that. And so I'm doing a lot of writing, and, you know, we're writing some films together, and I'm writing some poetry.
Oh, good.
Yeah, I'm doing a lot of writing. And I'll be
maybe you'll come to Sedona, right? Maybe you'll be in Sedona. Possibly.
If I can get my passport, I will definitely come. Yeah, it's out there, in sort of in another country.
Thank you always for being here. Henrietta has a chapter in the book, which is kind of a non-linear, which is the only way to make sense of this phenomenon, is non-linear. So when you get the book, making contact, go through it and try to understand all of what's putting together in your own way. Now, there it is. I'm going to send you a hard copy. Roderick, I was just getting to you. My good friend Roderick's doing incredible work on Clubhouse. Tell us about what you're doing, Roderick.
Well, we're growing. In 90 days, our Clubhouse group is now up to 12,000 people, and so that's
his particular club. Tell us about your particular club on Clubhouse.
My particular club is called Extraterrestrial Evidence, and there we just dive into this phenomenon. I mean, we got people sharing their experiences, and which is probably one of the best places, where they're feeling safe. They're coming and talking about all their experiences, and it's just been amazing to hear the stories. But, because oftentimes I said we focus so much on what's going on in the sky and we're missing what's happening on the ground, right? And so we've basically been able to do that, and it's been really instrumental. Tomorrow we'll have Barbara Lamb on. We're going to be talking more detail about crop circles. So we're going to go into the detail of that. And that's at 8:30 Central Time on Clubhouse. And and then, of course, we're going to do some live with Anjali. She's going to come forward on video. And
do you know who Anjali is, Grant? Have you heard that story?
No.
She's on Reddit. She's the former Defense Intelligence Officer that actually read in the Secretary of Defense that's sharing her CE5 experience, that she's actually went into the caves and visited extraterrestrials. So she's come forward providing information, her experience, and now she says she actually has a message from the extraterrestrials to tell the world. So we're going to share it this coming Sunday night, 8:30 live on YouTube, which is Extraterrestrial Evidence on YouTube. So we're looking for more subscribers. Subscribe to the channel. Steve, I know you can punch that channel too. You guys get on there. And yes, Alan is my friend, and we're going to be promoting his book on Clubhouse. We're going to do a bookathon for him. So we're going to figure it and do that. So
maybe can we get Grant if he wants to on the Clubhouse one day? Grant,
that'll be up to Grant. I would love to have him on there if he had time. We usually do it at 8:30 on Tuesdays and Thursdays Central Time, and if he got an hour of his time, we love, and people really will love probably ask them questions live.
You're going to shake a lot of people up, Grant, because when you say they're not aliens, it's like we're just getting used to the aliens.
I would say it's a little more complex than aliens. There's something else is going on. I mean, there may be some alien component to it.
Okay. Well, I'm going to connect you with Roderick there. And it's always been a really fascinating discussion. I always appreciate your insight, enthusiasm, energy, Grant, because you are the quarterback of this Super Bowl game here.
Yes.
I actually posted today that I've got so much material, I don't even know where to turn now. It's like,
you're breaking new ground. That's why I wanted you on the show. It's like, who's going to say is much more complicated, because people don't even want to know there's aliens for the most part. They just want to sit in front of their television and maybe watch Ancient Aliens and say, isn't that nice? But they're not interested in meeting them and actually knowing that maybe we are the aliens as well, right?
Yeah.
So thanks so much for being. Just tell us a little bit, anything that you want to share about what's coming up for you and your work.
I'm doing the Boulder group on Friday night. I've done them 4 times. That's a pretty big group. I'm going to do it online there.
What is that? The Boulder group? What does that mean?
XO Boulder group, started by Paul Harris and a bunch of people. It's a pretty big group. They usually meet at the University of Colorado, but now do it online. So I'm doing that. I got a book coming out on the Canadian government, the early Canadian government, and I have a book on triangles, which is finished. I'm not sure whether I will publish it. What I'm basically working on, my 2 exciting things I'm working on, I mentioned this DMT thing. I'm doing a second book on psilocybin called the Super Bowl. And when I came up with the title, I had a voice come in my head and said, of course you're going to call it the Super Bowl. What the hell else would you call it? So I'm doing the book on that. But I'm watching these DMT people that are just amazing stuff. And the other thing I'm working on is I'm going to try to get really public is I got fascinated with this thing with the kids with the blindfolds, which you may have seen. And
that's Carol and Cory who's doing that.
Cory's one of the ones that do it. There's a couple of trainers in Canada. I got involved with this kid in Australia that.
Well, I just want to say that's kids seeing through they're blindfolded and they're holding up a book and they're reading every single word in the book. Yeah. So go ahead.
And they can.
No, go ahead. Go ahead, Grant.
And they can pick up targets. They have have intuitive targets. They can hear a mile away. And it's the idea that when you have a near-death experience, something is going on that is beyond the physical world. It's, again, this thing where if this is right, and these kids do see through blindfolds, then the world is pretty, we've got something really wrong with the way we see how the reality works. So I'm actually going to try to get a training session with these trainers online where you can come on Zoom and learn how to do this. Because it is fascinating stuff when you see this, and it basically shows us the world is way more strange than you think it is when you see this, because it is actually happening. And so I got fascinated with this. It's the idea of the anomaly. So that's basically what I'm sort of working on now.
Right. Great. What were you saying, Steve? You were going to say something?
Grant, just because you seem like you're going into psychonaut territory, I have a friend who I've mentioned her before, Forsten Bray. She interviewed John Lilly, Terence McKenna. She's very familiar with this stuff since 1971. She has 3,000 hours of tapes. And you need to speak to somebody like that. She's more
I'll
real.
put you in touch. With,
that would be good. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I would like that, because that's an aspect that, if you understand what's going on, I think there's 40 universities 40 organizations, universities, and agencies in the United States working on psychedelic research right now, and there's 20 in Europe. This thing is absolutely exploded in terms of, they're using it mostly for treatment for depression and smoking and all this kind of stuff, and PTSD and stuff like that. But the other aspect of this breakthrough reality where people describe being in a mystical experience and all this kind of stuff that was talked about by William James, I think is absolutely fascinating. And I would agree with some people who say this is the one thing that actually could save the world. It's moving at an incredible rate. You have no idea.
Wait, what is the one thing the kids reading through blindfolds is the one thing that could save the world?
No, I'm the psychedelic thing. The whole having these universities,
because and meta programming of the human computer.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Because you have New York University, Johns Hopkins, UCLA, all these big universities are in this thing. And the bottom line is they're working on treatment stuff for like depression and stuff. But the key is that it comes with this component of people being in this other world, talking about the oneness, talking about love as the basis of the universe, mystical experiences. And that comes with all this research that they're doing in this treatment thing. There's a massive race to people to control the psilocybin market and stuff like that. The interest and the amount of research is stunning. You would not believe how much research is being done on this kind of stuff.
But we also have DMT in us. I mean, we can access some of those states in dream time, and that's what I'm doing. I'm practicing lucid dreaming, and it's incredible. If you just watch your mind, what comes through without you thinking it, it's thinking you.
But again, it's your experience. But this is people who are doing at laboratories, and the one I gave you today that I said, this is an AI guy who builds platforms for industry, for the government, and in outer space. And this is the guy that said thousands of lifetimes, every aspect of everything that happened in 5 minutes. When you see that kind of stuff, then you realize we are really got something here. If you can figure out what's going on here, then you realize our reality is totally messed up. We haven't got, as I posted today on Facebook, we have not got a clue what's going on. When you start to see this kind of stuff, we think we understand what's going on, we don't.
Well, thanks for telling us we don't have a clue, because that's a clue to the fact that
you don't have a clue.
Thanks, Grant, for your time. Thank you, everyone. Roderick, I'll see you Tuesdays and Thursdays. Zinka, I'll see you around the corner. And Henrietta, I hope to see you soon. David and Steve, I'm always talking to you, Steve. Okay. Thanks, guys. Thanks everyone watching. We had a really good online chat on YouTube. So thanks, everyone. Keep tuning in every Wednesday night. We're doing the ET Roundtable. So you're welcome back anytime. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you, Alan, for doing it, for putting it together.
Steinfeld, New Reality.
Yes.
Get my
You're
book.
The one that's bringing us together.
Yes. I'm just witnessing. But the book, I think, is a really good baseline for everything that's coming out now and will be coming out. It's about consciousness, it's about who we are, and it's about realizing there's more to the human experience than our media, our education, our politics, our religion, our parents have told us. There's a lot more.
We knew that, Alan.
Thank you. We are needed. So get the book and we will go forward. Talk to you guys soon.
Thank you, Grant, for everything that you said tonight.
Yeah,
so
thank you,
interesting.
Friday
Like
night, I'm interviewing.
Avenues.
I'm sorry, I'm just saying. Friday night, this channel, I'm interviewing Darryl Anka on something called Straight Talk. So that's on YouTube. So yeah, thank you.
Okay. Thanks for the psychedelic thing too, Grant. I'm with you on that.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thanks.